Good morning. Welcome to Daily Videos with me, Pastor Michelle. Today is Wednesday, December 30th, and let's get started with a reading from Titus. I desire that you insist on these things so that those who have come to believe in God may be careful to devote themselves to good works. These things are excellent and profitable to everyone, but avoid stupid controversies, genealogies, dissensions, and quarrels about the law, for they are unprofitable and worthless. And God's love note. As one of my beloved children said, major in the majors and minor in the minors. Focus on the most important things and be clear on what they are so people know what kind of community you are building. Make sure people know what it means to live in service to each other, to care for those in need, to recognize the divine in each other and also in yourself so that you really can love others as you love yourself, because you really do love yourself. When your community is clear on what it is about, it can let go of the small quibbles that take up so much space when a community is confused about its purpose. My beloved child, I am counting on you to help your community major in the majors. All right. So let's pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. So let's continue talking about food, because I love food. So bread was the most important ingredient of a person's diet in biblical times. Bread was usually, so they probably did not hear the keto diet or no carb diet. Bread was usually baked from spelt or emmer wheat, while barley was grown primarily as animal fodder. Poor families often had to do with barley as a wheat substitute. Those fortunate enough to have land of their own tried to cultivate broad spectrum crops, trading diversity for quantity to provide their families with a varied diet, including beans, cabbage, leeks, beets, and onions. Dried or salted fish caught in the sea or the Mediterranean provided protein. Surveys by Israeli scientists have showed that in biblical times, the Sea of Galilee contained some 2 or 3 dozen species of fish, though only a few were fit for consumption. One species was the silvery sardine, which is possibly the few small fish mentioned in the story of Jesus' miraculous multiplication of bread and fish. Meat was rare and, for most of the peasantry, only available at feasts such as a wedding or the birth of a child. Sheep, goats, and fattened calves were preferred sources of meat. In one of Jesus' parables, the return of a prodigal son is the occasion for the slaughter of a fatted calf. The kosher laws of the Torah restricted the types of animal meats that could be eaten. All kosher animals had to be slaughtered to avoid unnecessary pain for the animal and ensure near instantaneous death. Because the Torah prohibits the possibility of a young animal being cooked in the milk of its mother, dairy and meat products were always served separately. They can never be eaten together at the same table. And just to be clear, I misread something. So the kosher animals had to be slaughtered by a qualified ritual slaughter, someone that was qualified to be able to do it in a way to avoid unnecessary pain to the animal. So only cattle and game that have chosen hooves and chew the cud, such as bulls, cows, sheep, lambs, and goats, could be used for consumption. Swine, badgers, hares, and camels were not considered kosher and could therefore not be eaten. Pigs were particularly repulsive. Similar limitations applied to fowl, although chickens, ducks, turkeys, or geese were considered kosher. Scavengers and raptors like vultures and eagles were not. Similarly, only fish with fins and scales such as herring, salmon, or tuna could be consumed, whereas bottom-feeding fish cannot. I love pig, so I don't know if I could survive with not eating that. I love me some bacon. So here's the picture of Moses and the miracle of the quails. That's a painting. And here is a brass Passover plate. All right, so tomorrow we'll begin to hear about women's clothing in Bible times. All right, so let's highlight another good highlight of 2020. I know there's been stuff. Okay, so I guess I would say that I feel like my work at the church it's thrived in the midst of this pandemic, which is a good thing. I mean, I feel like in a way I was meant, I feel always I'm meant to be a pastor, but even in this time, I feel like my gifts help me to be able to serve my church, the church I serve with Pastor Brian. I came up with creative ways to stay in contact with people. So I went through our directory, and I continue to do so. I contacted every person in our directory. I have hand delivered care packages to people without seeing them. I would just place them on their porch. During Christmas, I also did the same thing. I hand delivered some Christmas care packages, and we did Advent care packages even for our families. I have written 1,000 cards. I've called people, I've texted people, I've emailed people. So I feel like as far as the pastoral care and staying in touch with people at the church, that's a highlight for me, because I do feel like for the most part, maybe it's not perfect, but for the most part, I feel like I have done a pretty good job of staying in contact with people. So I feel pretty proud of myself for that. I don't like to feel proud of myself, but I'm going to have a moment of feeling proud. So I'm going to pat my own back. So anyway, I don't do that often. I'm always very quick to remind myself of what I do wrong, but when it comes to taking time to say what I've done right, it's a little bit harder for me. So anyway, let's get into catching fire. I examine the cornucopia and see what he means. This tail points toward 12 o'clock. Right, so this is the top of our clock, Peter says, and quickly scratches the numbers 1 through 12 around the clock face. 12 to 1 is the lightning zone. He writes lightning in tiny print in the corresponding wedge, then works clockwise, adding blood, fog, and monkeys in the following sections. And 10 to 11 is the wave, I say. He adds it. Finnick and Johanna join us at this point, armed to the teeth with tridents, axes, and knives. Did you notice anything unusual in the others? I asked Johanna and Beatty, since they might have seen something we didn't. But all they've seen is a lot of blood. I guess they could hold anything. I'm going to mark the ones where we know the games maker's weapons follows us out past the jungle, so we'll stay clear of those, says Peter, drawing diagonal lines on the fog and wave beaches. Then he sits back. Well, it's a lot more than we knew this morning anyway. We all nod in agreement, and that's when I notice it, the silence. Our canary has stopped singing. I don't wait. I load an arrows, I twist and get a glimpse of a dripping wet gloss, letting Wires slide to the ground, her throat slit open in a bright red smile. The point of my arrow disappears into his right temple, and in an instant it takes to reload. Johanna has buried an axe blade in Cashmere's chest. Finnick knocks away a spear Brutus throws at Peeta and takes Inoberia's knife in his thigh. If there wasn't a cornucopia to duck behind, they'd be dead. Both of the tributes from District 2. I spring forward in pursuit. Boom, boom, boom. The cannon confirms there's no way to help Wires. No need to finish off Gloss or Cashmere. My allies and I are rounding the horn, starting to give chase to Brutus and Inoberia, who are sprinting down a sand strip toward the jungle. Suddenly, the ground jerks beneath my feet, and I'm flying on my side in the sand. The circle of land that holds a cornucopia starts spinning fast, really fast, and I can see the jungle going by in a blur. I feel the centrifugal force pulling me toward the water and dig my hands and feet into the sand, trying to get some purchase on the unstable ground. Between the flying sand and the dizziness, I have to squeeze my eyes shut. There is literally nothing I can do but hold on until, with no deceleration, we slam to a stop. Coughing and queasy, I sit up slowly to find my companions in the same condition. Finnick, Johanna, and Peeta have hung on. The 3 dead bodies have been tossed out into the seawater. The whole thing, from missing Wires to song to now, can't have taken more than a minute or 2. We sit there panting, scraping the sand out of our mouths. Oh, mama. All right. I don't know why I just said that. God bless you all. God bless me. And have a wonderful day, my friends.